So the main thing that I'm going to talk to you about today is this horrible developing case in the UK, in Bedfordshire. Not a place I'm familiar with, but I'm going to show you on the map where it is. And yeah, 3 bodies found in an absolutely gorgeous, great big house. 3 bodies found, very sadly, a mother and 2 children. And the father, we don't know where he is, but he's thought to have maybe left the country. So we're going to have a look at what we think that might mean. Anyway, they haven't been identified yet, but we're going to talk about that. And, this seems to be happening all the time, doesn't it? People thinking that whatever's going wrong in their life, I presume something big's going wrong in someone's life. If they take the steps of annihilating their whole family. But why do they feel that they can do that, especially children? And quite often they then sort of annihilate themselves with them, but this person hasn't. Or, this is what the police are saying, that the suspect, they think, may have fled the country. But yeah, very sketchy details coming out. But we're going to talk about. So first of all, thank you to everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. So yeah, I've hit 8,000 subscribers total on my 2 channels. That's a nice feeling. I'm looking forward to getting to 10,000. Probably take, another 10 years or something. But please subscribe, because it is completely free. And if you enjoy my videos, it's just a free way you can help, is by subscribing or liking or leaving a comment or sharing. And then special thank you to those of you who go even further to support my channel. My members, thank you so much. We're having a members live this Thursday, come hell or high water. Thank you to those of you buy Ko-fis or PayPal me or buy merchandise. I've got my mug. I've got to do a video about the merchandise. I always say I'm going to do it, and then I never do it. What else did I want to show you? Yeah, and thank you. I know some of you have bought my books on learning Spanish. These are available, for those of you who don't know. I am a Spanish teacher. I've written 5 books on learning Spanish, 5 different levels. They're available on any Amazon site anywhere around the world. So if you want to learn Spanish, these are the books for you, because they're easy, simply explained. They've got the answers in the back. And there's always internet support. Other books that are on Amazon that you may be interested in is I suppose you'd call it an autobiography, really. Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, Vicky Riley. That's available, again, on any Amazon site. You can order it from any Amazon site. If you want to know a little bit more about me personally and where I grew up and how I ended up coming to live in Spain and how I ended up getting interested in true crime, if you've got some time to while away, you may find it interesting. People say it is interesting. I think it's interesting. I always go back to that quote of Oscar Wilde, you should always keep a diary just in case you need something interesting to read on the train. It's good to write things down. I did find it very cathartic writing this book. I wrote it in installments, not just all in one big thing. I started a blog and then ended up putting it all into a book. And yeah, people seem to think it's interesting. I think I've had an interesting life. That's not always a good thing. It's just one calamity after another, really. But there you go. I'm still here for today. We can only take one day at a time, can't we? But really, this book covers more or less until I came. But anyway, that's Confessions of a Spanish Teacher available on any Amazon site, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. If with any of those books or merchandise or anything you have any problems ordering, or sometimes people can't get the Ko-fi thing to work, so you can always contact me. I can give you alternative ways to order. And as far as the merchandise is concerned, you can send me your specific requirements. I'll design it for you and send it to you to make sure it's okay before we order it. So everything is tailor-made on my channel for you, because you are my viewers, my subscribers, my members. You are the most important thing, because I would have a channel without you. I'd just be sat here talking to myself. Sometimes I'm sat here talking to myself, but most of the time I've got you lot to talk to. I like your input into things, cases, etc. I like the way you all get on well together. We really have got the best chat. There's no nastiness allowed. If people want to chat nasty, well, they can go on. There's a million other channels they can go on. I'm a tiny little YouTube channel. There's loads of channels out there that love all the nastiness, and they love it because they do grow more quickly because of that. Sometimes if there's drama on the channels always sort of grow more quickly. But as far as I'm concerned, I've got to sleep at night. I only want to talk about true crime. I only want to talk about the victims and make sure people get to know what's going on, and we can chat about it, what we think about it, what we think the reasons for things are, etc. And it is, to me, my channel is just like, it's like a lot of YouTube chat rooms and that. They've replaced the pub, haven't they, in a way, which is sad in one way, but good in another, because we wouldn't all live near the same pub, would we? So you're getting to chat to people from all over the world in a like a pub-like atmosphere. It's like comfortable, casual. But as I always try and remind people, just remember, you don't know who's watching. So it's not the same as being in a pub these days, because where you're just chatting with your friends, you're out there on the internet, so anyone can get to see what you're saying. Just bear that in mind. So don't give away too much personal information. Just be aware that there are some Fruit Loops out there on the internet. Not everybody is sensible like us. Oh dear. I mean, I am a Fruit Loop, but in the best possible way. Okay, so let's take the banner off. Oh my God, this world is mad, isn't it? Do you know, in the end, what else can you do but just accept everything? You can't do anything, can you? So, but it is crazy. Sometimes you have to see the funny side of it, even when you're in the midst of tragedy. And the saying that I heard recently that I just keep repeating is, when you're going through hell, keep going. That's all you can do. When you're going through hell, keep going. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. The police are also saying, don't speculate. Just makes me laugh. Do you know, why do they even bother saying that? Don't speculate. Of course people are going to speculate. 3 people have been murdered, a mother and 2 children. The father's nowhere to be seen. Of course people are going to speculate. You would never stop that in a million years. Why? Again, like we talk about things you just have to accept sometimes in life, like losing your loved ones, or that relationships sometimes break up, or sometimes you haven't got enough money, to pay your electricity bill or whatever. These are things. It's reality. People are going to speculate. Of course they are. Until they know the full story, people will speculate. Can't say it. So media is here to say. The mainstream media also speculates a lot as well. It's just, the way it is. Hi, Daniel. Yeah, happy Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Hi, Justice Jane. Hope you're well. Um, so, yeah, now for those of you like me who didn't even know where Bedford was, my geography, really, when I think about it, it's terrible, my geography. Even if actually, the UK, it's quite small, isn't it? So maybe most places are quite near to other places. Oh, look, it's not that far from Luton. See, when I just looked at this briefly earlier, I saw that Birmingham was there, and I was thinking, it's near Birmingham. Didn't look the other way and see that it was also like, it's also, close to Cambridge. Anyway, that's where it is as far as England. So that's where this crime took place. Now, there's a few things that have struck the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, because there's crimes happening all the time. I can't report on every crime. Oh my God, sometimes I get I think, oh, shall I talk about that? Shall I talk about that? And I think, God, I can't talk about all these crimes, because there's so many terrible things happening. It's awful, isn't it, really? So I tend to sort of focus in on certain crimes that capture my interest for a particular reason. And this one has, because the sort of, the mystery of it, the three, a mother and two children, but also wait till you see the house where this has happened. This is always something that fascinates me because, people think, how can I put it? People think, sometimes I think that crime only happens like in deprived areas and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Crime can happen anywhere. Just because, there are certain number of motives out there for murder. The biggest one is probably money, isn't it? Money, love, custody battles, insurance policies, which of course comes down to money. There's a finite list of reasons why somebody may kill somebody else, or domestic violence, etc. There is, and sometimes I think people don't think it can happen in places like this. I mean, look at this house. So these people, I mean, whoever it is, they may not have money, because you don't know what's going. Just because someone has a big house doesn't always mean they've got money, because they might have spent all their money on that house, or they might have bought that house when they had money, and since then they've lost their job, or their business has failed, or whatever's happened. But it's the last place, I suppose, isn't it? You would look at it, you wouldn't think this is what I'm always trying to say in my videos. You cannot think by looking at someone or looking at a place where people live that nothing bad could happen there. In fact, these big houses, when I see these houses, they really give me the creeps more than little because you look at all those rooms, you can tell from all the windows there's a lot of rooms in that house. But you're just as isolated in a big house like that when you're suffering from domestic violence, or whatever's happening. You're just as vulnerable in a great big house with all those rooms that perhaps you could hide in, as you are in a sort of one-bedroomed council estate flat. If somebody's determined to do you harm, you can't escape them, even in a great big nice house like that. And people would look, I'm sure, well, it's already coming out about what the neighbours are saying. Oh, she seems like she was such a lovely mom, and people will probably say, oh, they seem such a lovely family. But it was all going on in that house. Something was going on in that house. And the thing is, sometimes it's worse in a great big isolated house like that, because nobody hears you screaming or hears the punches or hears, whatever's going on. If you live in on top of a lot of other people, they might ring the police when they hear you screaming and being attacked or whatever. But if you live in that house, who's going to hear you? Who's going to hear you? Nobody. So it's quite chilling, isn't it, to think, um, what happened in that house. They found 3 bodies in that house. And you'd look at that house and think, what a beautiful house. A bit like in the Preston Davy case, isn't it? I know it's the new house that the monsters have bought. But, you look at that lovely house and they're out there giving sweets to the kids for Halloween. And nobody knows that they've murdered, they've abused and murdered a 13-month-old baby. So, yeah, basically, I think what I'm trying to say is killers, monsters, they don't just come off council estates, or they don't just come out of deprived areas. They are in all walks of life. And sometimes the ones that get away with it the most are the ones that look more respectable, like the monster dads, or the monster murderers, I should say. They weren't his dad, were they? They look normal. They've got normal jobs. They've got their professionals. They've got beautiful house. It's like a show home. But underneath the surface, there's evil. There's not, and sometimes you see houses or people who, maybe aren't like perfect, maybe the house is run down or whatever, but there's love going on in that house. Might be chaotic environment, might not be a show home, might not be these men, remember, who are boasting that they've never even had a parking ticket. As if that's so, have never had a parking ticket. We can never, and I think this is something the police are up against a lot, isn't it? They've got to be very careful because they're human beings. They've got to be very careful not to make assumptions about people just because of the background they come to, whether it's come from, whether it's their ethnicity. We saw that recently with the case where the Sikh guy murdered the British guy, and the police assumed that the British guy was drunk, didn't they? That's why they arrested him. As he was lying on the floor, they didn't even realise he'd been stabbed. They were arresting him and putting handcuffs on him because they made the assumption that he was drunk and racially abusing the Sikh guy. And the Sikh guy's all level-headed, and so this is what I'm saying. So it's a lot. The police have to deal with that a lot, not to make assumptions. When you turn up at a crime scene, you literally do not know who's committed that crime. If you're called to a crime scene, you don't know if it's a man and a woman. You can assume that it's the man who's attacked the woman. But, it could be the other way around. You've got to arrest everybody, really, until you establish the facts. And then you've got Gabby Petito. That was another instance of the police, this time, assuming because Brian Laundrie was so level-headed and it was Gabby who was a bit hysterical and that, assuming that Brian was the wronged party. And that frustrates. Every time I watch that video of the police stopping them, I get so frustrated because the police made assumptions. And unfortunately, normally they'd make the assumption it was the woman that was being attacked. But because Gabby, sadly, she sort of, I feel like Gabby was maybe a bit the worse the way. Maybe she'd been smoking a bit of weed or something, because she came over as being a bit hysterical, etc. And the police then, and Brian was all, oh yeah, because he's the psychopath. Because quite often it's the people that have done the bad thing, they're psychopaths. That's why they're calm. It's easy to project for a psychopath to project that somebody else has got the mental health problems. Oh, they're a bit hysterical, they've had mental health issues. That's what they always say, isn't it? Oh, they've got mental health problems. And that because they're psychopaths and they're cold and, they're not emotional, the police quite often will believe them. So there's a lot more training needed. Anyway, so this to me is a prime example. So that's another of the reasons why I wanted to tell you about this case. These things are so, and it seems so prevalent these days. How many times do these people, these twonks, go out and murder their family, their partner, their family? Quite often they delete themselves afterwards. This person hasn't had the guts, basically, to do that. They've run off and supposedly left the country. Now, that could lead us to many conclusions. Maybe they are from another country, like, maybe they've done like what Sarah Sharif's parents did and gone off to India or wherever they were from. Or maybe they fled to Spain. There could be a lot of British criminals. They're on the plane and they're off to Spain. They're living amongst us here. You just never know who you might meet here. There's loads of people on the run from Britain here in Spain, loads for various offences. So that's those are the reasons why I wanted to tell you about this. Apart from the obvious facts, it's a terrible crime when a mother and her two children are murdered in their own home. So it's back to that in their own home thing, the place where they should feel safe, especially the children. It's like Nancy Guthrie, it's like Preston Davies, like all those cases of people actually, things happening to them in the very place where they should be safe. And it feels like in this case, it's been done to them by the very person they should feel safe with. It's a bit like Travis Decker, isn't it? Remember, took his kids off of the custody and murdered them. Happens so often. Chris Watts, why is it happening so often? And is it happening more often now? Or is it just that we're getting to hear about it more now? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's more common now or if it's just that because of the internet, etc., we get to hear more about things. Hi, Pamela. Yeah, drugs are a factor, and alcohol, of course. People get drugged up, or a combination of the two. I mean, of course, sometimes you get a combination of all of it, don't you? You've got someone who's on drugs, drinking, domestic abuse, money problems. Sometimes it's a culmination, isn't it, of many different problems. And sometimes it's planned and sometimes it isn't. I mean, that's what we've got to find out here. Was it that maybe there was an argument between the mother and father, and then the father got really angry, killed the mother, and then thought, oh, well, if they haven't got... Because it's amazing how people's minds work. They'll quite often think, well, the mum's gone now, so I'm going to kill the children as well. Sometimes it's because they don't want to leave witnesses behind. Sometimes, as in the Chris Watts case, it's because they want to start a new life with their new girlfriend. All those things are to come out, aren't they? An amazing house, So they haven't been identified, probably trying to let all their family know. So the bodies of a woman and two children were found by police when officers forced their way into a home in Great Denham, Bedfordshire. And the suspect that detectives want to question is believed to have fled the country. Aye. Now, in the Sarah Sharif case, her dad and stepmom and uncle, they all fled the country, didn't they? And at first, they were being hidden by family. They were being helped, I suppose is the word, by family. But the family got fed up of it, didn't they? Because, they were getting the police turning up at their house all the time, raiding their house. So the family, got fed up of it basically, and then they decided to come home. But remember, as far as Sarah Sharif was concerned, bless her, she was already dead. But her biological dad and stepmom, who the stepmom now is best friends with Lucy Letby in prison. How about that? Yeah, Lucy Letby and the stepmom of Sarah Sharif, who's serving, I think she's serving life as well. They're the best friends in their prison. They like go on dinner dates together, do each other's makeup. There you go, child killers all together. Anyway, they left their other children back in their home country, didn't they? So we don't know, and we'll never know, if the other children had been abused as well, or was it just Sarah? Was it just Sarah? Sarah was abused to death, just like Preston. A little body, she just gave up. She just couldn't take it anymore. That's how it feels to me. It's like God lifts them away from that abuse. Because if Sarah wouldn't have died that day, same as Preston, if he wouldn't have died that day, they would still be being abused to this day. Because that sort of abuse, it never stops. So Preston, sadly, if he would have lived that day, unless it would have got, flagged up, he would still probably be with those horrible men in that new house that reminds me a bit of this house that we looked at yesterday. Preston would still be being abused, and little Sarah, if she had survived, you can bet 100% she'd still be being abused as well. So these people, they never stop until their victim dies. So let's just see if I can see this video. No, videos don't work that well, but anyway.
I can confirm that we have launched a murder investigation. After the tragic and shocking discovery of 3 bodies at a property in Great Denham near Bedford.
I can't get that advert off the top.
This is a deeply distressing and traumatic incident, and our thoughts are first and foremost with those who are directly affected. As a result of the inquiries that we...
Put it on full screen. There you go.
I can confirm that we have launched a murder investigation after the tragic and shocking discovery of 3 bodies at a property in Great Denham near Bedford. This is a deeply distressing and traumatic incident, and our thoughts are first and foremost with those who are directly affected. As a result of the inquiries that we have undertaken so far, we believe we have identified a suspect who was known to all 3 victims and who has now left the country.
Yeah. Known to all 3 victims and has now left the country. So there can only really be 2 reasons for that. He's, as I say, he's either British and he's fled somewhere like Spain, or he still could be British, but if he's originally from another country, which could be Eastern Europe, or it could be Pakistan or India or anywhere really, and they fled to their own country or their original country, if you like, to try, hoping that family will hide them. I mean, what family could hide them after they've done that? So, a murder investigation has been launched after a mother and her 2 children were found dead at home. Police were called on Monday over concerns for 3 people who had not been seen for several days. Officers forced entry into a property in Great Denham where they found the bodies of a woman and 2 children. And police said they've identified a suspect who was known to all 3 victims. So definitely the father, isn't it, or likely to be. Hi, David. Hi, Lily. I can't remember if I said hello to you or not. Oh, hi. No. Hi, Louise. So, yeah. Investigators fear that the 3 alleged victims could have been murdered. Official identification of the woman and both children has not yet taken place. And here again, the house. Look at that. Terrible things happen in, everywhere you can imagine. So Assistant Chief Constable John Murphy called it an incredibly complex investigation and said this is a deeply distressing incident in which a mother and her 2 children are believed to have been murdered. Our thoughts are first and foremost with all affected. We recognise that this will cause concern in the local community and beyond. He urged anyone with information about the incidents come forward. He added, while there is nothing to suggest there is any wider risk to the public, we will be increasing the police presence in and around the area to support the investigation and provide reassurance to residents. Yeah, because do they even know that they have left the country? Do they know for sure? I mean, they could be round waiting for an identification. As I say, we've been told not to speculate, as if that's ever. Now, just wanted to read. Let's see if that's sharing. This is in the Metro. Yeah, do you know what, Kelly? What you're saying, that was the first thing I thought. Am I there? I think I'm back now. The first thing I thought was, how is it when he said about it being complex? I thought, is it complex? Maybe it's the trouble is, of course, it's complex until they find out. They make their investigations, but on the surface, it looks pretty straightforward to me because it happens so often. But I don't know, and I wouldn't know. How do they know? Why is he not on the run? Like right there in the thinking that outside a mansion, they're describing it as a mansion. I mean, it is a mansion, isn't it? In Bedford or near Bedford, where the bodies of a mum and her 2 children were found today. The family was found after officers forced their way into a house in Carnoustie Drive, Great Denham, near Bedford on Monday, according to Bedfordshire police. The family was found after officers forced their way into a house in Carnoustie Drive. Oh, I think I've just said that. A woman amongst the mourners tearfully told she was such a gracious mother, the mother of a child who was ill, and she told the Metro, "This is incomprehensible." Is believed to have left the country. At least 4 police cars could be seen parked outside the large detached house. So it's a beautiful money, whether they've still got money or not. Maybe that's part of the problem. What's happened? Maybe there are financial issues. Oh, look at this, look at this. Oh, I hadn't seen this earlier. The property where searches are taking place belongs to the property where the searches are taking place belongs to senior IT manager Mark Schumer, according to the Daily Mail. I'm going to look at that in a minute. His wife, Sandili Schumer, has now also been identified as the adult children. A worker, they are really nice people. They had been living at the house for 2 years. I knew them from day one here. And the staff member added that the couple had put their house on the market prior to the incident. So that makes you wonder, do you think there was financial problems? I've been in touch with police as I was at the house. When I left, everything was normal. I'm heartbroken. Lovely family, lovely kids. Assistant Chief Constable John Murphy's incident, in which a mother and her 2 children are believed to have been murdered. Our thoughts are first and foremost with all those affected. We recognise this will cause concern in the local community and beyond. And then he said this is the early stages of what is an incredibly complex investigation. We are committing all necessary resources to establish exactly what has happened and to find the person responsible. And they said the suspect was known to all 3 victims and there's no wider risk to the public. And then they appeal for information. So let's see if we can find the Daily Mail. And you know, the Daily Mail always get the story, don't they? Whether we like the Daily Mail or not. Let's see if I can find it. Just make sure that's sharing. Yeah, they do always come up with the information, don't they? Like the Daily Mail or not. So the £100,000 a year BMW 2 children were murdered at their 1.3 million luxury home. Police suspect who led a give us a photo. The executive businessman whose wife and 2 children were found dead at their home in a horrifying triple is Mark Schumer, a £100,000 a year senior IT manager. Would you say that name sounds Asian? Right, the picture will come up in a minute. I don't know why it's taking a long time to come up. Oh, or is it a video? Police who had to force entry into the property discovered the bodies of Schumer's wife, Sandile Schumer, with her 2 children whose ages are unknown. And then it really, most of the rest of the story is what we've already read. There he is. No, so he's not Asian. I wonder where he's from. So, oh bless. So this is Zandile. The mother, she's deceased. And the 2 children. So it looks like, I don't know. Anyway, we don't know. And anyway, could be British. Could have been brought up in Britain. We just don't know, do we yet? So there won't be photos of the children, obviously. From Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe, is that where he's fled to? To South Africa, that is, isn't it? Zimbabwe. Is Zimbabwe a country in its own right? Or is it part of South Africa? I have no clue. I have no clue. I know it's Africa. So is he going to be protected? Is it in South Africa, Kelly, or is Zimbabwe a country of its own? That's what I'm going to look at. Not sure if it's an actual country. Now look, I know I'm showing my thickness here as far as geography is concerned. But you know what? I know a lot about literature and Spanish and things like that. And that's just, you can't be good at everything. So is Zimbabwe a country? Yeah, it's a landlocked country in southern Africa. It's bordered by South Africa to the south, Botswana to the southwest, Zambia to the north, and Mozambique to the east. The capital and its Victoria Falls are certainly. Good old AI. There you go. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's Africa. That's Africa. And it's here. Right. And it's landlocked. No formal extradition treaty because they've left the Commonwealth. So there's no active functioning legal mechanisms in place to extradite individuals between the two. No wonder they're saying it's complex investigation. So if he's gone off to Zimbabwe and there's no that people won't be extradited because it just means they can't just tell someone, they just can't be told to extradite him. There has to be negotiations. There has to be negotiations, don't there? So if she's Zimbabwean as well, the Zimbabwean government, might think, yeah, we are going to extradite him because he's killed a Zimbabwean person. Or may they try him in Zimbabwe? I don't know, so I don't know. And I think that's what the police mean when they say it's a complex investigation. Because even if it's glaringly obvious, who did it, maybe they've got all the DNA forensic evidence that they'll need, but they've got to get him back to the UK, haven't they? One way or another. How is Zimbabwe going to look upon that? How sad, isn't it? So very sad. So a neighbour who had lived next to the family for 2 years. This what's going on, do you? Just because people on the surface, they look like they've got loads of money because they're driving a BMW and they've got it. And she told the Daily Mail they had a 5 Series BMW, which I'd see them cleaning. He must have had a good job to afford that and to buy the house, which has been renovated in the last few years. And the detached house, which was bought 2 years ago for 1.3 million by Zuma, who has a degree in computing informatics from the University of Plymouth, has a swimming pool, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. So all that, the BMW, the swimming pool, the 4 bedrooms, the 4 bathrooms, made out were not safe. These children were not safe from their own father in their own home. It's terrible, isn't it? You know? And as I say, a lot of times people do look on the surface like they're quite well off, but they're not. If you could see, into their bank accounts and things, some people, people always think I've got money, I've got no money, not that I've got a BMW. If you saw my car, you would know that I haven't got any money. But do you know what I mean? But I think people do assume, and as you get older, people assume that you're probably quite well off. But believe me, if you lived in Spain, it's just like, just not happening. I do think you've got more opportunities to make money in the UK, but of course everything's more expensive as well, so everything's relative. I mean, the thing about Spain is it's difficult, to make money in Spain, but it's a cheaper lifestyle. So, it's all relative. The beach is always free. That's what we always used to say. Take a picnic to the beach, bottle of cava or I don't know, whatever you feel like to the beach and you feel like you're living a luxury lifestyle. But like if you live here in Spain, you can't afford to go to the beach bars and things. People who live here can't afford that. You have to take your own drinks, your own food. Can't afford the beach bars, and you can't afford the sunbeds either. I think it's €18 now for a sunbed for a day. It used to be €8, and that was expensive. So you end up buying your own little sunbed from the Chinese shop, or chair or whatever, and you just. It's different when you're on holiday because you've got your holiday money, haven't you? You save up your holiday money and you know what your budget is and that. But when you live here, it's like any holiday place where people live. They know the places that are cheaper, don't they? But what I'm trying to say is, just because someone looks quite affluent or well-to-do, doesn't mean anything. He might have had no money left, or he could have lost his job. They're saying the house had been up for sale recently. Maybe he'd lost his job. Maybe he was a gambler. Maybe gambled his money away or sniffed it up his nose, or, we just don't know, do we, what's going on in the background. Maybe he had another woman and he's fled to Zimbabwe with the other woman. Maybe it's a Chris Watts scenario where he just didn't want his family anymore. He wanted his new woman. We don't know, do we? Is he with anyone? Has he gone with someone to Zimbabwe? But yeah, it's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful, beautiful house. But you know what? It didn't do them any good, did it? Didn't do them any good. Them the victims and avoid speculating about what might have happened. But you're never going to stop people doing that. That is a human. Sorry, I'm not going to feel bad about speculating what might have happened. This is a human thing. Let's not talk about it. We want to talk about it because we're outraged by it. So contact the police if you have any information or have noticed suspicious activity. They've been on his LinkedIn profile. according to his LinkedIn, at Sir Lucy University in Zimbabwe. So he is originally, he's not British born, I don't think, before completing his Bachelor of Sciences degree in Plymouth. He later studied for a diploma in Business Systems Analysis and Design at City St George's University of London, and he describes himself as a results-orientated and energetic IT leader. So there we go. Very sad, very, very sad, and there'll be more details coming out. This poor woman, married to him, and lovely house, etc., 2 kids. It's like, probably on the surface they're like the dream family, aren't they? He's got a good job. I don't know if she was a stay-at-home mum or if she had a career as well. Beautiful house, and whatever's happened, one thing we do know for certain is her and her 2 children, they're dead, and he's disappeared. So, you don't have to be an FBI agent to put 2 and 2 together and know that it's likely that it's because of him that they are dead, isn't it? So, that's not speculation. That is just the way it will be. Do you see what I'm saying? Can't tell people not to speculate. Of course they're going to speculate. It's like trying to, I don't know, it's like you can't be in denial about the way people are. It's not human nature. It's not a bad thing as long as you're respectful about it, to the victims. I mean, I don't care about being respectful to him. I don't want to paint him as guilty before it's been discovered. But do you know what? You've only got to put 2 and 2 together. If there'd been some terrible act, why has he run off to Zimbabwe? Why didn't he just stay and tell his story? Like Chris Watts came up with that ridiculous story that Shanann had murdered the children, and that's why he murdered Shanann. Is that what he's going to say? Is he going to take the Chris Watts line of defence? Oh, well, she murdered the children, so I just snapped and I murdered her. That's what Chris said, wasn't it? What twat? That makes it even worse. Because if someone just admits, that they lost it completely for whatever reason, but to then try and blame Shanann, that was an even worse thing that Chris Watts did. And his dad automatically believed it. But anyway, so there he is. Where is he? Probably in Zimbabwe if there's no extradition treaty. And surely his family won't be protecting him. Just, I've got a son. I'm just thinking if, my son went to live in another country and then he got married and then he had 2 kids and they're my grandchildren and I love them and I adore them. And then he turns up at my door and says, "Oh, sorry, I've murdered my wife and kids, and my wife and kids are dead. Can you hide me for a bit?" Be like, "No, you can F off, basically. Kill my grandchildren." Unlike Chris Watts's mum and dad, who stuck up for him, even though their grandchildren had been murdered. How could they? They're a weird family. Chris Watts's family are completely weird. Just like Brian Laundrie's mum and dad, the same, sticking up for him, even though he'd murdered Gabby Petito, who they knew. Just looking at the comments now. Oh, written in poor taste, it says that. Well, it is Daily Mail. Well, Valentina's saying there his income, car and house value are no interest to anyone. I think they are, though, because I think the reason that I think they're important is I just want people to know that there is no, it's not like just, how can I put it? It is important because it's important that people understand that domestic violence, if this is what this is, it has no boundaries. It can happen anywhere. It can happen in the royal family. It could happen, it's not just something that happens in impoverished families on council estates. That's what I'm trying to say. I do think it is important. Anyway, they're all criticising the Daily Mail, of course. Well, they read it, though, didn't they? So, if you read it, the Daily Mail might not be perfect, but they do dig up information about cases, don't they? So they said there was photos of the interior. I don't know. But people are curious. I don't think it's a sin to be curious about things. Personally, I don't. But anyway, you might take a different view. Yeah, I think it's important, to show that these things can happen anywhere. These things happen more in these sort of places because your neighbours can't hear you if you scream. It's terribly sad, isn't it? At least if you were in a little flat with neighbours, they might hear you scream or hear you and maybe ring the police or come round to see if you're okay. If you're in that house, nobody's coming round. And how long was he in the house afterwards before he fled? He probably was there long enough to get his passport, pack a little. Do you know what I mean? Because nobody was going to just turn up at the door, were they? Yeah, I don't, Kelly, they might believe him, but the thing is, I think the fact that he's done a runner will go against him. So whatever, maybe he's thinking about what story to tell now. Maybe he'll come up with some self-defense story or she killed so he killed her. But the now is he did do a runner. So he did a runner. Why did he do a runner? He's got nothing to hide. But are they going to be able to extradite him? So yeah, sad, isn't it? Anyway, let me put. I just want to put candle up for the mum and for the kids. 3 hearts, 3 candles. God bless. Just must have been terrifying for the kids, especially. Well, terrifying for all of us, all of them. Awful case. Anyway, I hope you do manage to bring him back. As I say, just because there's no extradition treaty with Zimbabwe does not necessarily mean that Zimbabwe won't send him back. Especially because the people he's murdered are Zimbabwean as well. So there'll be pressure from the family, I would imagine. Maybe her family's in Zimbabwe as well as his family. So if that's where she's from originally. So we'll see. But I'll keep you up to date on this. I will see you really soon in the next video. Don't forget to leave your DNA on the like button, the subscribe button. Thank you so much for getting me to 8,000 subscribers. Thank you for all your coaching up there while I remember. I think I am anyway. I'm not very good at this, am I? I should. Yeah, I've got all these banners and then I've put them up. So yeah, thank you for your emails. Thank you for your lovely comments. but most importantly, look after yourself, because you are the most important person. Because if you don't look after yourself, everything falls apart around you, doesn't it? You know, a friend of mine sent me a message, you know, because I was telling her what happened with my various other things that are going on at the moment. And she said to me, she said, "Oh, you always," I'm crying now. She said to me, "You always find a way." Well, what did she say exactly? How did she put it? You know, we've been friends forever. She's the person that first came to me for a holiday. And this is what she said to me. It's not like you, because like yesterday was a terrible day for me. Really, really, I was so low yesterday. It's not like you to let things get in your way. You've always been very good at removing obstacles. I've always admired you for being brave, living in the present, and overthinking like me. Much more sensible than me. I'm sensible, that's the trouble. But anyway, it was lovely when she sent me that message, because I thought, yeah, I have been strong. I have removed obstacles. You know, I have got through things. But what I'm trying to say, the whole point of what I'm trying to say, is you do have to look after yourself sometimes, because you're sometimes holding everybody else together. And sometimes that's a hard, you know, sometimes it does get too much, you know, and you have to really dig in. When you're going through hell, keep going. That's what you've got to do. So remember to pamper yourself a little bit so that you can look after everybody else. But thank you for watching. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. Listen, thank you so much. Bye.